It's November, and you know what that means. A challenge that comes once a year is back, and it's actually a good challenge for a change. Also in the news, we have Joe Biden talking about how Israel should quote-unquote pause, but what's the difference between a pause and a ceasefire? I don't know, and neither does he. All of that and more on today's episode.
Facts over tracks, this and that, spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roast, I could gas, think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past.
Since today is already the 4th day of November, and the month is already going by fast, I wanted to do some research on a trend that gets popular this month every single year. It's called the No Blink November trend. I'm going to try to keep this talk as PG as I can for my sake. That means I will not say what blink means, so if you already know what blink stands for, great. If not, God bless you, and you probably don't even need this monologue to begin with. But getting right into it, every year when November comes around, guys try not to have fun with themselves. It's a challenge that many people did for years in the past, but it's a challenge that many guys today have trouble with. This is a problem. Even though it's only for 30 days, some guys need to lose the challenge just to have fun with themselves. That's because guys are so used to having zero self-control that when they are challenged to control their desires just for 1 month, they can't. That's the problem with society. It's not just the NSFW content, but it's also for phone usage. Gen Z can't go for a walk without listening to something on their phones. And when they do, they go crazy. Everywhere you look, you see people making excuses for why they do not only watch NSFW content, but also play with themselves so often. This is because people have the World Wide Web on the palms of their hands, but not only try to not restrict themselves, but think it's not bad at all. It's not just for select people, but a lot of people in my generation, Gen Z. According to johnwatt.com, the median age for young people first exposed to internet porn is between the ages of 11 to 13. One survey found that only 3%, yes, 3% of boys and 17% of girls have never watched porn. That means 97% of guys have. That is because we have had access to tech from a very young age, and we have now mastered how to find exactly what we want, exactly when we want it. 52% of teen boys and 36% of teen girls regularly and intentionally watch internet porn. This not only ruined the way that we talk to people that we want to date, but also changed the way that our brain is wired to only think about sex when talking to a new girlfriend or boyfriend, not anything else. It completely ruined the dating scene. It completely ruined our patience. It ruined our desires. It ruined our desire to grow and raise a family, and it ruined marriages, 56% of them. These are all of the reasons that we need to band together, not just as a generation, but also as a society more broadly, to overtake the desire to not watch porn, to not only watch porn, but also our desire to play with ourselves. No one said that it was going to be easy, but not one person said that we were going to die doing so, or at least try. Why not, at a bare minimum, release yourself from the grip that society has on our generation and other generations after us? Why not free up time to study, read a book, or get smarter? Think of all the time that you will save not wasting it on a video that will result in absolutely nothing. Before you comment and say watching NSFW is an addiction, let me tell you something. It's not a drug. It's a desire. A BS desire, in fact, to watch a video that will satisfy your craving. It is not needed to survive. To prove it to you, try to not watch it for 1 week. After that, think about how you feel. If you didn't die, which you won't, try another week until you have zero desire to do so anymore. You can do it because many people before you did, and I did too. We are all in this fight together. Fuck porn, and fuck the people that make billions of dollars on people's desires and blow smoke up their ass and tell them that everything is fine. It's not fine, and our world is getting worse. Worse and worse by every single video that people watch in our generation, and every single time that people look up things online that interact with their desires, other than going in the real world and actually doing things that actually benefit society, like making a family, like things have been done in the past. That's what's greater for society, not just watching a porn in the dark room in your house. With that being said, we have the rest of the show to cover, so without further ado, let's begin. Moving right right in, we actually have a Daily Wire article. We have Target CEO conservatives are upset over trans merch, more dangerous to employees than George Floyd protests. Wait, so you're sitting here telling me that conservatives worrying about the indoctrination of children are worse than people that actually have looted your store, took things for free, and set your stores on fire throughout America in 2020 to 2021? Is that what you're trying to tell me right now? Because I do not believe that for 1 second. No, I completely think that's BS. I do not believe that. He's saying this because of the fact that he wants the woke to appreciate him more, because that's his target audience. His target audience is not conservatives. His target audience is liberals that want to spend more money rather than just going to Walmart, TJ Maxx, Marshalls, or any of those other stores that have the same exact item for less money. Target CEO Brian Cornell deflected when he was pressed on Thursday about specific Target products that generated a boycott starting in May, while suggesting blowback over transgender merch came from violent customers who threatened his employees' safety more than the George Floyd riots, which I did not see. Maybe I saw some people asking questions, but that's what you view as a threat? That's stupid. Target has admitted by Cornell, is still suffering from abysmal sales. Outraged shoppers took to social media back in May after discovering LGBTQRSTVWXYZ pride clothing for children and a transgender tuck-friendly bathing suit at a popular retail chain. It was also later pieced together that a designer tried to franchise featuring occult images in phrases such as Satan represents pronouns, Satan respects pronouns, and trans witches for abortion. Designed some of the Target's pride items. Cornell told CNBC's Squawk Box that the violence and looting witnessed during the George Floyd riots did not compare to the trans blowback. We've seen natural disasters, the impact of COVID, some of the violence that took place after George Floyd's murder, but I will tell you that what I saw back in May was the first time since I've been on this job where I've had store members saying it's not safe to come to work. The CEO claimed, adding that angry customers were engaged in very aggressive behavior at store level, lots of threats, and destroyed products. Okay, so what I saw in videos are completely different than what he's saying here. He's over exaggerating across the line. What I saw was people actually taking the pride display down and putting it on the floor. Don't blow smoke up my ass. Okay, I know what I saw. You don't need to gaslight me. Okay, I know what I saw. What they did was they were confronting your employees, and yes, some people were mad because of the fact that you approved these products, so you should take sole responsibility for what your employees were going through because of the backlash you yourself caused. So what I saw was customers going to these employees and asking, why do you still work for a company that's doing this, this, and this? Employees were like, I don't know. And they're like, okay, so take this display down. They're like, well, we can't because it's mandated by you. Stupid people, I can't. They were very aggressive with our team members, personally threatening them, yelling at them. Cornell said, they threatened to light product on fire in the store. We've been celebrating heritage months like Pride forever, a decade now, and we never saw this kind of backlash, this kind of response. Okay, so you do realize this was like no other time that you ever did before, because of the fact that you're actually teaming up with a self-identified demonist, and you're actually releasing these things for children. You never did that before. I mean, if you did, then we should have had this backlash and this boycott years ago, but that's sadly not the case. Seemingly running in a contest with Cornell's assertion, stores in at least 5 states received bomb threats via email from individuals, angry that the retail chain betrayed the LGBTQRSTVWXYZ community by removing the merchandise, the Hill reported. Okay, so, and I completely see that happening because of the fact that if you remove LGBTQRSTVWXYZ stuff from your store, then you get bomb threats from them, from this very community. So that's not Republicans in that community, that's not conservatives in the community, no, it's all these leftist people and liberal people within that community that like to go and get their way, and if they don't get their way, then they threaten them with killings. That's what they like to do over on the left. Cornell suggested that he had to pull the controversial merch from the stores, not because of the devastating financial repercussions from the massive boycott, but for employee safety. We had to prioritize the safety of the team, he said. The CEO further seemed to deny some of the transgender items and association with the controversial pride designer when pressed by CNBC. Quote, people said, look, there are bathing suits that are transgender bathing suits that are being targeted and marketed to kids. Host Rebecca Quick told Cornell, quote, this is a guy who you are working with, a designer who, I don't know, is a devil worshiper or something. What would you say back to some of those criticisms? Quote, I think that you and I both know that those aren't true, the CEO claimed. But in the moment, we said the best thing for us to do is address the issue. We cannot combat each and every statement that's made and do the right thing for our team, taking the learning as we move forward. Okay, so you're not apologizing. So the boycott is still on, first of all. Since they said that they were going to remove these LGBTQRCVWXYZ displays, I went back to Target and I purchased one thing actually. So I'm thinking about actually returning that one thing that I purchased from them, and I'm just not going to go back there again. I was going to say, okay, well, let me give them a chance. They have a couple things that I might need. Nope, I just won't go back. Because Cornell, listen, this is the thing here. If you're not going to accept the responsibility for your company, if you're not going to accept responsibility for who you teamed up with because you didn't want to do any further research on that very person that you teamed up with, then we're not going to go and have any sympathy for you because you're just not accepting the repercussions of your very actions and you're blaming it on other people. Take some responsibility for yourself and act like a man. I can't. Moving on to the next article, we actually have an MSNBC or a CNBC, a CBC, NBC? Yeah, we have an NBC News article. Biden calls for a pause in Israel-Hamas war to get prisoners out, which doesn't make any sense to me because of the fact that they have been trying to get prisoners they say that this is a refugee camp and they're prisoners. They're not prisoners. This is a city. They've been trying to get the people to move out of these cities that they call refugee camps, which these buildings have been up since the 1950s. They're not refugee camps, they're cities. So Israel has been trying to get these people out of these cities in Hamas and the Gaza Strip for the last couple weeks now, and they refuse to move, and Hamas actually traps them in these very buildings. So then when Israel goes and targets the military targets that they have there, then innocent people die because Hamas is putting them in harm's way. So all of these deaths that are happening in Hamas are Hamas's fault, or in Gaza is Hamas's fault. All of the deaths that are happening in Israel are Hamas's fault. They take sole responsibility, just like in 9/11, how when Al-Qaeda went and flew a plane into the World Trade Centers and killed all of our people. Then we struck them with 2 bombs and killed a bunch of their people. That's in retaliation to what Al-Qaeda did, and that is actually fully justified, and that is not only their fault because they're the one that caused the war, but it's also on top of their fault for killing our people, it's their fault for killing their people. So they take sole responsibility for everything. But Joe Biden doesn't really see it that way. He just licks his finger and then sees which way the wind is blowing. President Joe Biden said on Wednesday that a pause was needed in the Israel/Hamas war to allow more time to get prisoners out. I think that we need a pause, Biden said in a response to a question from a protester who interrupted him at a campaign reception in Minnesota. Asked to clarify what a pause meant, he said, a pause means to give time to get the prisoners out. Give time. Negotiations to free 239 hostages, including children and the elderly, have continued since Hamas's October 7th attack and killed about 1,400 people in Israel. After Hamas breached Israel's border wall, other groups from Gaza seized additional captives. The protester, who identified herself as Rabba Jessica Rosenberg, said that she wanted Biden to call for a ceasefire, but you can't have a ceasefire because Hamas is still there. You really think that a ceasefire is going to fix the situation that Israel is going to be facing with Hamas in the near future if they do not completely obliviate Hamas? No, that does not mean genocide the whole entire country of Gaza. That means that we need to take out the government of Hamas. You can win the war without killing everybody. I don't know if people really realize this, and the people that don't realize this need to shut their mouth because they do not understand what war means. War means that you take over the government of that said city or state or country. And then what you do is you say, okay, now that I took you over, I'm going to bring all of your people over to this country, and I'm going to make sure that they get with the system of this country, and they need to put their terrorist organization and their terrorist regime behind them. That's what they need to do. The protester, who identified herself as her, said that she wanted Biden to call for a ceasefire. Mr. President, you care about Jewish people. As a rabbi, I need you to call for a ceasefire right now, she said. Okay, so that does not make any sense. If you care about Jewish people, then you would need to defend their right to defend themselves. Okay. After the crowd tried to quiet her, she said, I would love for you to answer my question, at which point Biden called for a pause. He went on to say, "This is an incredibly complicated for the Israelis. I can thoroughly understand the emotions on the Palestinian side of the argument and the Jewish side of the argument." A White House official later said that Biden was not making a new policy announcement when he called for a pause in the fighting, but he was emphasizing his brief belief that to aid in the release of additional hostages, a temporary ceasefire or pause would be necessary. No, that's stupid because of the fact that they've been warning for the last couple weeks, and all of a sudden they decided to start missiling the state after they told everybody exactly where to go in videos that we showed on this show. Go back and watch them. The official said that Biden was referring to his urging Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to temporarily halt the assault in part of Gaza to allow 2 American Israeli hostages, Natalie and Judith Ronan, to get out. The official said Netanyahu agreed to no Israeli airstrikes in the part of Gaza for that short period. Okay, so Netanyahu already agreed to no airstrikes in that part of Gaza for the short period, so what is he saying a ceasefire is needed for then? Biden said last week that the flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza needed to increase after Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said humanitarian pauses must be considered. So food and water and medicine and other essential humanitarian assistance can flow into Gaza. But you do realize that Hamas just takes all of this humanitarian aid and then just uses it to build more rockets that they use against Israel. You do realize that, right? NBC News reported that at the time that according to a United States official, the White House has supported a quote-unquote pause to intermediate duration to allow more aid to reach Gaza and to enable those attempting passage out of the enclave to leave safely. A former National Security Advisor for Israel, retired Major General Yoav Amar, told NBC News on Thursday that a broader ceasefire would be a huge mistake for Israel, exactly because they would lose the war if they ceasefire, because Hamas is not going anywhere unless they are completely destroyed. And I mean Hamas as a government, not innocent people, which Israel is not targeting. If Israel was targeting innocent people, then we would see hundreds of thousands of people dead within a couple of seconds. We're not seeing that. We're seeing a couple hundred, maybe a couple thousand, maybe at the top. But I do not trust Hamas's answers and their info on this, because they have every single incentive to go and say that the death toll is actually more than what actually occurred. They have every single incentive because of the fact that the media is listening to them. They're not listening to the official narrative and the official figures on this case. They're looking at Hamas's numbers, and Hamas has every incentive in the world to actually lie about these said numbers. With that being said, we're going to be digging into the media's take. Okay, moving into the next article, we actually have a CNN article. We have United States warns Israel amid Gaza carnage. It doesn't have long before support erodes. Okay, so Israel never had the support of America. Maybe on October 7th and 8th, that's it. But as soon as Israel started defending itself, all of the support just vanished for some reason. It just does not make any sense to me. As soon as a country starts defending itself, all of the support just vanishes. So what? You agree that it's bad for Gaza to attack Israel, but when Israel goes and attacks Gaza for attacking them, it's bad. It sounds a little stupid to me. President Joe Biden and his top advisors are warning Israel with growing force that it will become increasingly difficult for it to pursue its military goals in Gaza as global outcry intensifies about the scale of humanitarian suffering there. Oh my god. Imagine if this was happening during World War II. Imagine if the media was just so stupid during World War II, then we would be controlled by Germany. We literally would. If this outcry for, oh my god, look at the devastation of the war, then we would never have won the World War II, and we would be controlled by Germany, no less. We would be controlled by Germany. If we cannot have a war without the media saying, oh my god, but look at this, are you a baby? This is repercussions for your actions. That's like if a baby was to go and talk back, or a kid was to talk back to the mom, and the mom slaps his butt in retaliation for what he did. Those are the repercussions of your very actions. Then you're gonna say, no, don't do that to my horse. Oh my god, why are you hitting your son? Okay, first of all, I'm hitting my son because of the fact that he talked back to me. Gaza, the Gaza Strip, or Hamas controlled Gaza. Hamas attacked Israel. Israel defended itself and retaliated. So what is the problem here? Do we not believe in self-defense anymore? What if you slap me across the face and I punch you and knock you out? That's not justified. What am I supposed to do? Just walk away and say, oh well, I just got slapped in the face? Just like in Israel, thousands of people died. Oh well, thousands of people died, and what do you mean and? Thousands of people died, you're gonna die too. You killed thousands of people, you will die. That's justice for your actions. If you didn't want to die, then why did you violate the ceasefire that Israel and Hamas had on October 7th? That does not make any sense. President Joe Biden is top. Okay, I already wrote that. I already said that. Biden Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, who departed Thursday for Israel with a message on protecting civilian lives. They have been protecting civilian lives. They have been telling people to get out of the areas that they're missiling. They have ceased fire in the areas that Joe Biden and the clown administration in America have told them not to go and fire into. They have repeatedly told all the citizens within the cities that they are firing to get the hell out. Hamas is keeping them in there, and they're responsible for all of the deaths in Gaza, because they're the ones trapping those citizens in those very buildings that Israel said that they were going to attack. How do people not understand this? People should have the basic understanding of when a country warns and says, listen, we're going to be missiling this area, you might want to get the hell out, and you don't get the hell out. How is it the responsibility of the person that's defending itself? I can't. Behind the scenes, American officials also believe that there's a very limited time for Israel to try to accomplish its stated objective by taking out Hamas in its current operation before an uproar over the humanitarian suffering and civilian casualties, and calls for a ceasefire reaches a tipping point. In fact, there is a recognition with the administration that the moment may arrive quickly. Some of the president's close advisors believe that there is only weeks, not months, until rebuffering the pressure of the United States government to publicly call for a ceasefire becomes untenable. Sources told CNN, yes, because of you guys. You guys in the media are changing the narrative and saying, no, wait, but yes, this atrocity that happened on October 7th happened, but look at all these pictures from Gaza. Do you want to see the headless people, the headless fathers in Israel? Do you want to see the people that were shot in their cribs in Israel? Do you want to see the people that were raped in the middle of their family dinner because of the fact that they were just in Israel? No, that's not happening in Gaza. What is happening in Gaza is war that they caused and that they're responsible for. That's what's happening in Gaza. So if you do not have the understanding that Gaza is responsible for all of this, then you need to just stop, recuperate, and look at the facts of what happened on October 7th, and even before that. Look at 2008, where Israel completely got out of the Gaza Strip, removed all military presence from the Gaza Strip, and left that up to Hamas and said, you can do as you wish with Gaza. Gaza had an airport for Hamas, but Hamas used this airport to lift up airplanes to attack Israel. So all of these things that Israel did repeatedly for Hamas has used these things to go and fire back at Israel. Just like humanitarian aid that came in the past to Hamas a few years ago, Israel actually gave Hamas in Gaza a lot of pipings that they can actually be using underground to have a sewer system and a water system. And you know what they use these pipe fittings for? They use these pipe fittings for rockets that they launched into Israel. Israel's the one that gave them these pipes. So they're using their own stuff, their humanitarian aid, in their aid to actually make their country better, to make their country not only worse, but also terrorize the countries around them. That's a terrorist regime, people. That's what a terrorist regime does. Moving into the next article, we actually have another CNN article. Great. We have Trump unleashes new attack on legal system after his adult sons take the stand. So yes, you did hear that right. Eric Trump and Don Jr. is actually going to court, and they're going behind the stage because of the behind the stands because of the fact that this judge wants to get not only Trump on these charges, but also wants to get Eric Trump and Don Jr. So it was a rough day in the court for the Trump boys. Okay, CNN. But even before Don Jr. and Eric had wrapped up an unconvincing day of testimony in a New York civil fraud trial, their father erupted. Quote, "So sad to see my sons being prosecuted in a political witch hunt by this way out of control, publicity seeking New York State judge in a case that should have never even been brought." Ex-President Donald Trump posted on his social media, legal scholars scream disgrace. Okay, so all of this one-sided narrative and this one-sided, like, I'm kind of annoyed at it already. Like, can you just calm down and just say what happened? CNN. It's like you're erupting already. You're like, oh my god, here's what he said, and it's disgusting. Can you calm down and just say what happened? I don't really care about your opinion. It's legal scholars scream at disgrace. I don't care about what the legal scholars, they can go kick rocks. The legal scholars have told us in 2020 and 2021 that they knew absolutely nothing. The legal people in charge of us, like the media, like the medical field people, like the doctors, all of these other people that quote unquote have the education to prove what they know, have told us that they absolutely know nothing about the real world. So I do not trust a thing that they say. So these legal scholars can go kick rocks. Trump's latest blast against Judge Arthur Engon, who has already found Trump, his 2 adult sons in their family empire, the Trump Organization, liable for fraud, also served as a preemptive blow ahead of the ex-president's own expected testimony in the civil trial in the courtroom on Monday. The sometimes strange goings on at the court in New York are offering early insight into how the even more high-profile and criminal cases facing Trump could play out in the unprecedented election year, when the campaign trail will run through the courts as well as key swing states. Trump fights his cases outside of the courtroom. Trump's legal defenses has become indistinguishable from the presidential campaign as he struggles to cope with accountability imposed by courtroom procedures, but portrays himself as a victim of political hounding, which he technically is, but 2 things can be right at the same exact time. Yes, this is a political witch hunt, number 1. Number 2, can it be a justified political witch hunt? Yes, at the same exact time. Let me rephrase. Did he do things that could put a target on his back? Yes. Is it unprecedented for presidents to be investigated for the same exact things that he's being investigated for? Yes. 2 things can be right at the same exact time. So you can't have the chicken without the egg, and you can't have the egg without the chicken. So it's like 2 things can be right at the same exact time. I agree. Moving on to the next article, we actually have an MSNBC article. We have what Robert Kennedy Jr.'s shocking poll numbers say about 2024. So a new university poll shows independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is attracting an eye-popping amount of support from voters who, and seemingly positioning himself as a serious threat to both parties. The survey found that in a hypothetical 3-way matchup in 2024, Kennedy would get the support of 22% of registered voters. Former President Donald Trump would get 36%, and President Joe Biden would get 39%. These numbers shouldn't be taken as accurate predictions. Yes, you should know this because in 2016, Hillary Clinton was projected to be the winner by 100% or 99%, but she won. But she lost. Trump won. But they should be taken at least a little bit seriously. No, I don't take it at all seriously. What I do know is that it depends on the poll, because you could ask 100 people, and then that's the poll right there, folks. So these polls really don't mean that much, but we also don't have any other indicator of what people are looking at in the poll. So it's like, yes, I don't trust it. I can admit that they trust it. If I throw out my statistics, we will have no statistics. So it depends on who you look at for your statistics. Okay, moving into the next article, we have a Daily Wire article. We have DeSantis mocks those focusing on his boots. Quote, "This is not time for foot fetishes. The United States faces serious issues." Okay, so this is actually a good comeback from him because of the fact that he was actually wearing something that looks like high heels. And do we have a picture of it? Can we show a picture of his boots? I do want to see his boots again. The boots, it's funny because I saw some edits of it and it was actually like girly music, and it was like just like a girly music, and it was like a edited video of him, and it was him in like drag. It was just funny. But the thing is that it was taken way out of proportion because obviously he was just wearing the boots that were like high heels. But I do want to see what he actually looks like. So if you were to actually search DeSantis in high heels, you can actually see what he's wearing and what people are actually talking about. I don't think that these are really like high heels. I think this only puts him up. There's no way he was wearing this. Wait, this was worse than I expected. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, never mind. Yeah, this was not as bad as what like they edited it. This actually looked a lot worse in the actual like the edited version. It looked like he was wearing actual high heels, but they actually edited it. Yeah, no, this is just great. Yeah, of course, people are going way too far with this. Obviously, these are just boots. This puts him up 2 inches, if that. It's not bad. People are saying that these are high heels. I don't think that these are high heels. I think people are just over exaggerating because it's Ron DeSantis at the same exact time. People have always been critical of what Ron DeSantis wears. So people are just taking this way out of proportion. But I do find it funny, the edits that come out of this, because it is just entertaining. Okay, moving with the article, we have Florida Governor Ron DeSantis push back at some people online who are focusing on his height and the boots that he wears, saying that the United States has serious issues it is dealing with that are more important than their foot fetishes. DeSantis made these remarks during an interview with Newsmax's Eric Bolling on Thursday night after some opponents of the Republican presidential candidate have been fixated on his boots in recent days. Quote, there are a lot of gotcha people. These are people who just want to sit there and they want to talk about how tall you are, whether you're wearing boots with high heeling extenders inside. Bolling said, I mean, Governor, the southern border is a disaster. Terrorists are coming across our border. We got 2 wars that are kind of fun, that we're kind of funding, and they want to talk about how tall you are. Respond, please. And this is what Ron DeSantis said. Look, Eric, there's no time for foot fetishes, DeSantis said. We've got a serious problem in our country. We've got a war in the Middle East. We've got terrorists coming across our southern border, and we have an American dream that's out of reach for millions of Americans because of Biden inflation and the high energy prices. We've got schools that are indoctrinating kids and not educating kids, and we've got cities that are being overrun by crime. I know people want to divert on to other issues, he continued. I know Donald Trump and a lot of people that have been focusing on things like footwear. I'll tell you, if Donald Trump can summon the balls to show up as a debate, I'll wear my boots on my head. That's actually funny. Ron DeSantis, that would be funny though. And I did get this notification when he actually said this because people are going crazy. They're like, oh, DeSantis said if Trump has the balls. Yeah, Trump does not have many balls over here. So this would be a very interesting debate if Trump was to actually debate DeSantis. That would be a debate that I would sit here and watch and react for you guys. That would be a very interesting debate. I would probably have to watch it twice, but this would never happen. Trump wouldn't do this. DeSantis is over here debating Gavin Newsom, and then he's gonna try to get Trump over here and debate him. This is exactly what should happen. Instead of the debate, like the quote-unquote debate like on Fox News, this 2-hour thing that nobody even says 2 sentences without being cut off. No, everybody should just be on like a Joe Rogan experience, and that's how we can find the answers. Joe Rogan, they should really do that. Joe Rogan, get all of the presidential candidates on the same exact episode. Joe Biden over here, that would be so funny. Joe Biden, RF Kennedy Jr., the witch lady in the Democratic side, and then we have Donald Trump on the Republican side. We have DeSantis, we have Nikki Haley, we have Tim Scott, and then we have Vivek with Ramaswamy. With all these people on the same exact episode of the Joe Rogan experience, it'll be like an 8-hour show. But you know how fun that would be? You know how entertaining that would be? All of the candidates for the whole entire presidential election, like all of them together in one room under one roof, and they all debate. That would be entertaining as hell. Okay, so continuing with the next article, we actually have a Daily Wire article. We actually have 12 House Democrats ignore Biden veto threat, help pass Israel aid with IRS cut. So if you did not already know, the House is actually trying to pass a bill that actually separates the House spending bill that Joe Biden actually proposed, and instead of actually having Ukraine funding, Israel funding, and Taiwan funding all together in one big fat bill, what the House Republicans are trying to do is separate the bills into separate issues and having the Democrats pass one by one, so it could actually show their support for one and not the other. So they're trying to back Democrats into a corner, and the Democrats are trying to do the same exact thing in the opposite way by grouping all of these things all together. So they're all trying to play the game of chicken, and obviously the president of the United States is a Democrat, and he's saying that he's just going to veto the bill. Chuck Schumer, the House Minority Leader, is actually saying that he's going to have this bill dead on arrival. So I don't think that the House Republicans are actually quite scared. I think instead they should call Chuck Schumer's bluff and say actually how much support you have because of this 12 House Democrats are actually ignoring your calls. So this is actually a very interesting thing right here. And what they're trying to do here, continuing with the article, is they're trying to pass a $14.3 billion in aid for Israel. But what they're going to do, instead of actually creating more funding or more debt for the United States, they're actually going to take those funds away from the IRS, which is actually hurting the American people. And the Democrats are over here saying, well, you're saying that you want to defund the IRS, but the IRS is how we make money in America. And yes, that is true. But also at the same exact time, who does the IRS target? target the most. The IRS targets the most middle class people because higher class people have tax attorneys, has all these representatives that do their taxes, so they don't have to deal with all of the BS that the middle class people don't really have enough time or resources to put towards the IRS. And the lower class people just get everything for free. So the lower class of America does not pay anything. The middle class pays everything, and the higher class doesn't pay anything. So, for the most part, some of them pay a lot. Like Elon Musk actually paid a lot of money in taxes. Jeff Bezos actually signed a law with other senators to actually have him not pay any money in taxes. So this is actually going to be a very interesting fight that the House Republicans are going to have with the congressmen. So moving with the article, we actually have 12 House Democrats joined with the Republicans on Thursday to pass a White House opposed plan to offset the $14.3 billion in aid for Israel by slashing the same amount of funds meant for the IRS. The GOP measure to provide emergency aid to Israel as it fights Hamas passed by a 226 to 196 vote, sending the legislation to the Democratic-led Senate, where Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has already vowed to not bring it up for consideration. Instead, Schumer announced earlier in the day that the Senate would work on its own bipartisan emergency aid package that includes funding for aid to Israel, Ukraine, and humanitarian aid, including for Gaza, in competition with the Chinese government. But the passage of the GOP House plan has already proven to be bipartisan, with a dozen Democrats voting in favor of it. Reps Angie Craig, Democrat from Minnesota, Don David, Democrat from North Carolina, Louis Frankel, Democrat from Florida, Jared Golden, Democrat from Minneapolis, Josh Gudmer, Democrat from New Jersey, Greg Landsman, Democrat from Ohio, Jared Miskowat, Democrat from Florida, Darren Soto, Democrat from Florida, Haley Stevens, Democrat from Missouri, Joran Vergras, Democrat from California, Debbie Wasserman Scott, Democrat from Florida, and Fred Wilson, Democrat from Florida. These are all the Democrats that have already signed this bill. The United States has a moral duty in national security urgency to aid Israel in defending herself, Frankel said in a statement on the vote. Quote, "Make no mistake, Hamas terrorists and other in the region are out to destroy Israel and kill all Jews. We must send unequivocal message to the world that we stand with Israel." Two Republicans reps, Thomas Massey, Republican from Kentucky, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican from Georgia, joined with other Democrats who voted against the measure. Okay, so here's the thing right here. Marjorie Taylor Greene is just the worst of all things Republican. Like, she's actively trying to screw over the Republican Party time and time again because she has no idea what she's even doing. So she's gonna sit here and she's gonna be on Trump's side all throughout the election thing. She's gonna sit here and say, "Oh, I'm a Republican through and through," but then you're gonna vote against these bills with the Republicans and you're gonna vote with Democrats. Look around you and see who you're actually teaming up with. You're teaming up with the enemy. 11 members, including 5 Republicans and 6 Democrats, did not vote. Okay, so what's the point of not voting? Were you absent that day? You did not know that the voting was actually occurring on that day? No, it's just BS excuses from them. So with that being said, here's my final take on that. It's good that the Democrats are actually standing up for Israel, those 12 Democrats, and the rest of them need to step it up because of the fact that Ukraine does not need as much funding as Israel. But of course, Ukraine has every right to defend itself against Russia. So you can say all you want about why Russia did it. All we know is that Ukraine has the right to defend itself, just like Israel has the right to defend itself, and Taiwan has the right to defend herself just the same as all those other people. So we do have another article. We actually have a Breitbart article. We have United Nations call for more funds to back $1.2 billion donation to Gaza. Now, of course, the United Nations is just an anti-Semitic organization that always stands up for the terrorist regimes in the Middle East that goes against Jewish people because the United Nations has it out for Jewish people for some strange reason. So, continuing with the article, send money. That was the plea from the United Nations in Switzerland on Friday, as the globalist organization flagged it as more than a quadruple an initial appeal for funds to help respond to the crisis across Gaza to about $1.2 billion. The AP reports spokesperson Jen Lickery of the United Nations Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. AP reports spokesperson Jen Lickery of the United Nations Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said that the current appeal, launched on October 12 for $297 million, has been only about one quarter funded. The Biden administration is leading the way with a donation contribution of $25 million in the United States taxpayer dollars. United States contributors to date have already been criticized as potentially going directly into the hands of Hamas terrorist organization. This is exactly what happens. When you try to give humanitarian aid to Gaza, Hamas just takes it for itself and then uses all of that humanitarian aid that we talked about in the earlier part of the show. They take all of that humanitarian aid and they use it to use rockets that go against the people that are our allies, or at least supposed to be our allies. Biden is seeking $1.5 billion in Ukraine and Israel funding, with $9 billion to go towards humanitarian aid, including the Gaza Strip. As Breitbart News reported, Lickery told reporters in Gunvro that the number of people displaced within Gaza has swelled to nearly 1.5 million, or about 70% of its population. Yes, only if, I have a solution to this. How about Hamas not attack Israel or the neighboring countries? Then they would have never even been in this situation from the beginning. So they have nobody else to blame but themselves. So if you didn't sign up for the terror that you caused Israel, then you would have never even had this problem at your front door. So that's my take on it. With that being said, we do have another article. We have a Breitbart article. We have Biden anti-Semitism envy. In past weeks, we've seen anti-Semitism come from every place on the political spectrum. So Thursday's PBS NewsHour, Deborah Lipseret, the Biden administration special envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism, stated that the anti-Semitism is ambiguous. It comes from every place on the political spectrum. As we've seen it in the past couple of weeks, and as I've said it in my confirmation hearings before the Senate, co-host Jareth Bennett asked, is there a difference between the right-wing anti-Semitism and the left-wing anti-Semitism? Does the political ideology warrant different approaches to combating it? This is what he said right here. I think it's ironic. Anti-Semitism is ambiguous. It comes from every place on the political spectrum, and as we've seen it in the last couple of weeks, and as I have said in my confirmation hearings before the Senate, it came from Christians. It can come from Muslims. It can come from athletes. It can come from Jews. It can come from everywhere. And on some level, the far right and the far left often meet on the issue of anti-Semitism. You need different tactics to address these groups. But I don't know if you can really change those people on the extremes. The people I want to reach when I'm going overseas, when I'm speaking to different groups, the different governments, civil society, and the people who might say, well, there's something to this. I want to expose them to what this hatred can do. No genocide ever began with people picking up guns or machetes or creating gas. It begins with words and it escalates from there. In words, death to the Jews, Jews should die, we need a Jew-free society, which you can hear in this country and you hear abroad, are just a fodder for that hatred. And it doesn't go away. It just builds and builds. And I completely agree with that, because you don't just start killing people. You start with the hatred, you start with the indoctrination, just like Hitler. Hitler went and he had the speeches every single day. He saw exactly what got the crowd going and roaring, and then he used those very speeches against the people to manipulate them, and then all of the other propaganda that he put out against the Jews. So with that being said, we do have another article. We actually have a Federalist article. We have Operation Deplorable, a who's who of the Get Trump crusade. So here's a who's who of the key players in the Democrats' latest crusade in the land of the criminal convention of Donald Trump. So the 2024 presidential frontrunner is faced with 91 state and federal charges 1 year from Election Day. After a series of failed attempts to capture the criminal convention of Donald Trump, Democrats have changed their primary political opponent with nearly 100 times to thwart the former president's triumphant return to the Oval Office. Here's a who's who of the key players in the Democrats' latest crusade to achieve the top item on their political agenda. So, Alvin Bragg. Manhattan's District Attorney Alvin Bragg was the first prosecutor to land the convoyed indictment of the Democrats' public enemy number one. In April, the New York prosecutor unveiled a 34-count indictment against Trump, carrying a maximum of 136-year prison sentence. The charges stem from 2016 hush money payments to porn actress Stormy Daniels in the case prosecutors previously denied to pursue. The Manhattan charges, however, marked the fulfillment of a campaign promise Bragg made 2 years prior to pursue the former president. Prosecuting Trump was apparently the top issue on his platform in 2021. The 50-year-old prosecutor's own supporters pointed to his ability to pursue Trump in court as a reason to back him. The New York Times reported on Bragg's endorsement from a former United States attorney in July of 2021. 1. Latina James. While Bragg pursues criminal charges against the former president, New York Attorney General Latina James has Trump in civil court on allegations of fraud. In September last year, the attorneys general filed a $250 million fraud suit with the state Supreme Court in Manhattan, accusing the former president of inflating corporate assets to obtain financial benefits. Which, okay, so the thing is with here, and I think we already talked about this, you have to prove that you did some wrongdoing here. Not only that, but you have to actually prove that you were actually hurting somebody. He was not hurting anybody. What he was actually doing was he, of course, every single business does this. He was inflating how much money he, number one, makes, and number two, the value of his assets. He was inflating those two things. But what does this mean? This means that he actually needs to pay more in real estate insurance. He needs to pay more taxes to the state. So the state was reaping all the benefits of the taxes that he was paying on assets that were worth less than what he was saying, number one. Number two, he was actually paying more money for the insurance of those assets, and that's number two. And there's many more reasons why this was actually a good thing for the state of New York, but of course New York wants to make even more money by suing him $250 million. So every single business in America does this, and it did not hurt anybody. It actually benefited everybody because everybody was making more money. Trump was making more money because he was inflating his assets. The insurance companies were making more money because his assets were not even worth as much as what he was saying. And the state was making money because he was paying the taxes on all of that. So James, 65, won in a partial summary judgment a year later, and in October, the trial began after the judge found the Trump family, including Trump himself, liable for fraud. Arthur Ingergon, the state-friendly judge presiding over James's civil lawsuit against Trump, is a Democrat who held the former president in contempt last year over subpoena violations. Arthur Ingergon is a judge in New York Supreme Court's first judicial district who ran unopposed for the seat in 2015 general election. In September, Judge Ingergon devalued the former president's Mar-a-Lago, Florida estate from between $426 million and $612 million, all the way down to a mere $18 to $28 million, which does not make any sense. Because if you compare Mar-a-Lago to real estate properties that are even next to the area, not even three times the size, not even the fact that it's surrounded by water on three sides, except for where you actually come in from the road. Mar-a-Lago is surrounded by water on all three sides of the property. It has a massive front ocean view with a beach connected to it. Not only that, but if you compare all of the bedrooms, the everything, the space, the square footage of the house, and compare it to other houses in the area, those houses in the area are not 18 to 28 million. It's in the hundreds of $1 million. And then once you get into it being on top of the water, surrounded by water, having its own beach, you're easily getting into the 426 million. Somebody actually rated it $1 billion. So $426 million is a low estimate of how much it actually costs. So Jack Smith is another person. Jack Smith, 54-year-old veteran prosecutor with years spent in the Justice Department, was appointed last November to lead two federal efforts seeking Trump's conviction. Now special counsel in a pair of cases prosecuting Democrats' top political opponent. Smith was previously held of the DOJ Public Integrity Unit from 2010 to 2015. Among his most notable cases was the prosecution of former Virginia Republican Governor Robert McDaniel, whom the Supreme Court exonerated of the bribery conviction in 2016. Smith was also involved in the Internal Revenue Service IRS tax scandal targeting conservative nonprofits. Smith's team at the Justice Department could not have landed a more friendly judge in the government's January 6 case against Trump and the United States District Court Judge Diana Cutchin, an activist judge with an obvious animus against the former president and his supporters. The Obama appointee was assigned to preside over the politically fraught January 6 case after building a reputation as a tough punisher of Capitol rioters. Fani Willis, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis in Georgia, upset a six-term incumbent when she defeated her former boss, Paul Howard. 3 years ago, Willis, who beat Howard in the primary runoff, carried the general election unopposed after no Republicans qualified for the November contest. Willis's investigation of Trump and the former president's campaign team was one of her first acts in office and will define her legacy. In August, the DA of Fulton County, which covers most of Atlanta, charged Trump with 13 counts related to the former president's efforts to protest aspects of the 2020 election. The Georgia prosecutor also indicted 18 Trump allies, several of whom taken plea deals. Trump advisor Jeffrey Clark, however, filed a motion on October 31st to dismiss the massive and grotesque abuse of prosecutorial power. A September report from the Federalist revealed Willis's possesses evidence exonerating Georgia's alternate electors, but continues to pursue criminal convictions anyway. Of course, because all of these these people, they have the same exact goal. They have the same exact goals in mind. All of these goals are to get their name out there, number one. Number two is to actually build up a platform for themselves. That's all they care about. They only care about pursuing their political agenda, and not only that, but they also care about just, having the goals that they want to achieve. Not only that, but also the fact that they want to continue down this route, and they want to make sure that the Democrats know that they're there for them and nobody else. But with that being said, we're going to end off this episode here. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for enjoying it. If you did like this episode, please like and subscribe down below, because I do post new episodes of the show every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thank you all for watching, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day.